Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jeanette Alomia, District Director of Guidance. Tonight, we're going to project our our voices as we don't have. I hope everyone can hear me. Yes? Okay, good. Thank you. This event will be recorded for future viewings, as always, and posted on the website and also on the YouTube channel. I'm going to do a few announcements and introduce the program and the presenters, and then we'll take it from there. First and foremost, I would like to welcome you to always reach out to your school counselor for any questions, follow-up questions with regards to anything, whether it's course selection, adapting to the high school, extracurricular activities, did I say course selection? Yes, course selection for next year, AP options, etc. The post-secondary planning, not only from a college perspective, but career and trades, etc. So I just want to urge you to reach out to your school counselor. And if you need further information with regards to our K through 12 programs, as a district administrator and director of guidance, I'm here to also share what we do at the primary, intermediate, and middle school levels. So tonight you're going to listen to detailed information with regards to the college admissions process, particularly the college admissions essay. And so, as you all know, many schools have changed or adapted their testing policy in terms of admitting SATs and ACTs as part of their admission criteria. And so with more reason that we're actually providing you more insight on how students can write an impactful essay, because that is actually an amazing and an important component of the college application, along with letters of recommendation, etc. But you'll learn more about that as the event moves on. And so, three events that I want to make note is first, we have our Nassau Counselors Association Spring College Expo. That is Tuesday, April 16th at 5:30 at Hofstra University. I posted the flyer with the QR code. It's on the door as you walk out. You'll see this flyer, and so what you need to do is you can register via this QR code, students, and then you'll see the list of schools that will be partaking in the college fair, and it gives you an opportunity. It's never too early to speak to the college admissions, especially our regional college admissions reps. It's never too early to learn more about their admission criteria, programs, sports, athletics, activities, etc. So I urge you to do that. So that's in April. Then we also have many different SAT and ACT prep programs. As you know, we have the Princeton Review coming to present on, like PSAT scores, now what, but they also provide not only in person here in the building, as well as virtual prep programs at a cost to you. For more information, you can go to our guidance website under SAT and ACT resources information. Project Excel is having a 6-week SAT prep course starting this Monday, the 11th, March 11th, and at the Huntington Youth Bureau. Once again, I posted this flyer outside on that door so you can register. Space is limited. We try to share with you through Parent Square every single resource that we have. But again, go to the HUFSD guidance department, the site within the district, and you will see where it says helpful links, the guidance Google site. I also want to recognize that Mrs. Walsh, our college counselor advisor, is here with her daughter Megan, who is a 10th grader. So welcome. Sorry to put you on the spot, but welcome. And then the next very big announcement, two big announcements for our juniors. This coming Wednesday, March 13th, is the mini college fair. And so permission slips will be actually handed out in English classes so that students can go to the gym, periods 2 or 3, to actually, again, communicate, talk, and just network and ask questions. And we'll have about over 50 representatives from different colleges in the area, outside of the state, okay? So that is Wednesday, March 13th, and that's for our grade 11 students. For our sophomores or our grade 10 students, you will be taking the digital PSAT 10, and I also communicated that information through Parent Square, and you'll receive details with regards to that exam when, what to bring, what not to bring in Mr. Cusack's weekly update, which goes out tomorrow evening, okay? So without further ado, tonight's presentation will be shared by two amazing, experienced, dynamic women, powerhouse of college admissions women and professionals. We have Lori Wax from Penn State. She's a college admissions counselor. And then we have Kate Anderson, who is a director of recruiting for the region. So you want to pay attention to these two wonderful ladies, because they're the ones that are looking and reviewing college applications and actually making those decisions along with a committee as to who gets accepted or not into their respective institutions. So without further ado, here is Ms. Wax and Ms. Anderson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Ooh, this is a little strange. Okay, everybody here okay, or am I echoing? Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight. There are so many pieces to the college application process. This is one that is really completely in your control, and it is actually our favorite part of the college application. So we're excited to talk to you about, just to give you some ideas of some do's and some don'ts, some of the things that we're looking for, some of the things we see, hopefully give you some ideas, and help you to start thinking about what you might want to write about.
Do you want to talk about Penn State?
Oh, sure. Anyway, so just a brief word about my institution. Again, my name is Lori Wax. I'm the Director of New York Recruitment for Penn State. Penn State is a large public research university. We have campuses throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Our main campus is right in the middle of the state, is home to 46,000 undergraduate students. We are a top tier 1 research university. We spend over $1 billion every year in undergraduate research in every academic area. We offer 275 different majors. They are divided between 12 different academic programs. We have a very vibrant, active, engaged student body. We have over 1,200 different clubs and organizations. And the thing that probably sets Penn State apart more than anything is our alumni network, which is the largest in the world. Currently, we have over 775,000 active alumni.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kate Anderson, as has been said. How many people were here on January 4th when Lori and I, did anyone come, because we talked about the process, so sorry if we're going to repeat a little bit. But Lori and I have been together in admissions side by side for a number of years. I've worked at 4 law schools and 2 SUNYs. I'm really proud to be part of the SUNY system. I'm guessing we may have some SUNY alums in the room. Any SUNY alums? Yes. So more than 6,000 colleges out there, lots of great options for you. 64 SUNYs, about half of those are community colleges, and then you have the 4-year schools. SUNY Oswego is a medium-sized school on the shores of Lake Ontario, as you can see. 6,000 undergrad students, really nice small classes, great range of majors. We brought some materials, so we can share that with you, and we have our cards also. But as Lori said, and as we said before, we do represent Long Island. I cover all of Long Island. That's close to 20% of our class. And last year, let's see, I read 2,500 applications. So that was just last year. So we have seen a lot of essays, and we'll share with you some of what we've learned. So what is the point of the college essay? We have some students here. I'm guessing it may not be your favorite part, because you look at that blank screen and you're not sure what to write, and every other piece of the puzzle that Lori talked about is pretty much done, right? Your grades are, you have your grades, and you've asked teachers for letters of recommendation, and you know your activities. But this is really an opportunity to get beyond the numbers and to see who you are, and for us to learn something about you that we aren't seeing in the other pieces. So really, if they take away one thing, is that we really want to get to know who you are, and it's not practical or possible for everyone to interview or go to schools. So this is partly for that, to get to know you. And also, is it important to learn how to communicate well and effectively? And is good writing going to be important no matter where you go to school? Yes. Even if you go to a music conservatory, you'll be taking freshman English or English 101. But do we make you write about quantum mechanics or something that you wouldn't know anything about? No, you write about what you are the world's best expert on, which is yourself. So I think that's a good thing to remember.
It's almost as if you were going to an interview and somebody said to you, so tell me about yourself. It's your chance to tell us about yourself and, highlighting your passions and talking about what you love to do, setting yourself apart, just letting us get to know you. And I do want to stress that you do not have to have anything catastrophic have happened to write a really effective college essay. The best essays that we read are very ordinary subject matters. It's just something that's important to you, whether it's a passion that you have, a person that's impacted you, although if you're writing about that, you want to be writing about the impact and about you, not the person. So really just, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be anything out of the ordinary. So the most people are going, how many of you have heard of the Common application, the Common App? Okay, so the Common App is probably the one application that most schools will accept. So many schools also have their own applications, but even if they do, most schools will accept the Common App. There are a few other apps. There's the Coalition application, and again, there are some school-specific applications. I know both SUNY and Penn State do have their own applications, but also accept the Common App, and I would say the majority of our applications are on the Common App. Would you say? Yeah. So you're basically filling out your information once, and then for each school you're applying to, there's an additional link and page that you would fill out. But the essay questions are the same for whichever schools you're applying to. There are 7 different choices. We'll talk.
And we're actually going to go through them because one of the best things you can do is read through them, let them sink in, and think about which one you want to answer. You don't have to stress too much about it, and oftentimes you're going to start a few and see what seems to be the best one, and wait, there's more. You might have to write additional essays, and there are even other places on the Common Application. But these are actually the prompts that any junior will be answering. They came out officially on February 27th, so these are the actual ones. Number 1 is a pretty popular one. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. In a minute, you could write down 10 things that you're passionate about or you're interested in, or something that's just a part of you. Everyone has backgrounds and identities and interests, and there's so many topics that make great essays. So it's not a surprise to me that this is a very popular topic. We truly do read about everything. Pizza, the subway, horses, Legos, it's really so wide. But any ones come to mind for you?
So dance is one. I mean, there's so many things. So it can be something that you're passionate about, but it also could be your identity, a cultural background. I mean, there are a lot of different things that this particular prompt can answer. The bottom line is whatever prompt you choose, you do want to make sure you're answering the prompt, but this really gives you a pretty wide latitude of options that you have. So just something that's central to you, and it could really be anything. The next question, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So again, you do not have to write about an obstacle. If you have been fortunate enough, like most of us have been fortunate enough to not have any major obstacles in high school that we've had to overcome, but some people have, and it's fine to write about that. But whatever you do choose to write about, if it is an obstacle, make sure that you've either overcome it or at least learned something very valuable from the experience. And that's really what the focus of the essay would be about, what you took away from this particular obstacle. We often refer to an essay that we had both read, that was a student talking about their struggles with chemistry and how the whole year, the whole semester, they kept struggling and the different things they did. And then she just ended up dropping chemistry, which was not really overcoming the obstacle. And certainly there must be many other things that would have been better choices. So again, don't think that you have to show that you've overcome an obstacle, and that would be the best thing to write about. If you have something that really answers that question, great. If not, there are so many other options.
Yeah. I think the important thing to focus on is often the second part of the prompt. A lot of students focus on the first, and they forget to bring it back to themselves. I think a good rule of thumb would be to spend about a third of your essay. And we've talked about the space you have between 250 and 650 words. That's a very strict limit, but it's a pretty broad one. You have to write at least 250 words. If you try to submit 660, the last 10 words would be cut off. It counts the words. You don't stress about length. You're going to rewrite and redraft and edit it and get it to just where you want it to be. But it's something where I think a lot of students, they spend way too long setting up the problem and talking about the problem, and that's not the point of this problem. Is what did you learn? How did what changed? How did you overcome this obstacle? So don't forget that second part of the prompt. Number 3, not one of the more popular ones, but a pretty interesting one. Reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? We're heading into an election year, but sometimes then essays get political. Probably not the place to be up on a bandstand about anything. One of the rules is you don't want to be offensive or demonstrate bias, and sometimes we start to see some.
Right, you don't know who is reading your essay, so again, as Kate said, you really don't want to be offensive to anybody, so you want to be very diplomatic when you write your essay.
But I've read some very thoughtful ones about students. Sometimes they are about, they're raised in a certain faith, and then they maybe have they question it, or they've some learning happening there. So it's an interesting topic, I think. The number 4 is the latest question. They don't change these prompts very frequently, but number 4 is the most recent one they added during COVID.
And we do love positive essays, certainly. So this gives you an opportunity to be very positive. It's reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? So again, if you're writing about somebody else, it has to really come back to how you were motivated, how this impacted you, what you're grateful for, even if you are talking about somebody. But it is a good opportunity, and it came about, as Kate said, after COVID, where there were so many, it was a very rough time for everybody, and there were a lot of more, I guess, darker essays, so to speak. So this kind of brought people back into thinking about what can I be thankful for, what positive spin can I take. So it's a great, if you happen to have something that applies to this, it's a great essay topic.
But a lot of times people write about their we see lovely letters about teachers and parents and relatives and friends and all sorts of things. But sometimes we want to admit that person, because that's the only person we've learned about, right? So your grandma sounds great, but she's not the one applying. So number 5, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and new understanding of yourself or others. So I read an interesting one just the other week, actually, where a student, this was about an accomplishment, had issues with his high school's cafeteria and food service, and he organized the school and went to the Board of Education and brought about change. I thought, well, that's pretty interesting, because think about, we're reading your application and thinking about you becoming part of the communities at our school. What role are you going to play? What are you going to do? So when we see your activities and what you did in high school, we learn what you're passionate about, chances are you're going to come to our schools and continue being like that. So my guess is that student will be a very active presence on campus.
Let's hope food is good.
Food's great at Oswego, so
we're in good shape then. Excellent. And then some of these are they overlap a little bit. So, thinking about whatever your specific situation is that you're writing about, you might be between two prompts. So I think this prompt sort of reminds me a little bit of the first prompt. Describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So it is a little bit different, but again, it's something that you are that's very central to you, that you're fascinated by, that you're passionate about. So again, if you have something like that, this could be a perfect essay topic. You might not know right off the bat what you want to write about, and don't stress about trying to find the exact right topic. Try to answer a few of the prompts, write several different things. One of them is going to just kind of rise to the top, above all the others.
And if you don't like the first 6, wait till you hear number 7, because that one's easy. But for number 6, there's an essay I frequently talk about because it really struck me as being quite amazing. I love a good first line. I love an essay that doesn't just trail off. And this student's, the first line in the essay was, "I am so envious of shrimp." And I've read a lot of essays, and I had no idea where this student was going with that. I mean, it just completely seems sort of random, right, and a little unusual. It turns out the student was passionate about art and loved color. According to her, shrimp eyes see 17 times the number of colors as the human eye. Is it true? Who knows? I mean, I could have gone and Googled it. It didn't really matter to me whether it was just incredibly creative, such a passionate essay about her love for art and why color was important to her. And, I was really just hooked from the first line. So that was I know, no pun intended. But that was a great one. But if none of those prompts speak to you, the first 6, so you always have number 7, which is share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. You can you can use something you already wrote in high school. Kind of feel like it's a little bit of the easy way out, and maybe not be the most impressive thing. We may not learn about you. When I read, and I do, something from 10th grade or 11th, A-Push, Ms. Wax's period 5, and they leave all that in as part of their precious words, and it's about the American Revolution. How am I learning about you? You weren't there. So it might be a good example of your writing, but I saw your grade from AP US History. So is that the best topic? No, but if you have your application due and you have been stuck and you don't know what to do, you can always just put something in. Or if you feel like what you want to write about wouldn't be answered by any of the prompts, and it's not a good response to those prompts, then by all means use number 7. We don't spend a lot of time saying, why did you say it was number 1 and not number 6? No, but you do have to choose which one you're answering.
Right, we do see which one you've chosen. It's not something that we're focused on. But this gives you an opportunity really just to write about anything that you want to write about. Tell us your story without worrying that you're answering a specific prompt. And again, this is just your opportunity to speak. I mean, we're here a lot, Kate and I, so if you're applying to our schools, chances are you will meet us. But you may not meet every admissions person that at every school that you're applying to. And this is your opportunity to have your voice heard and just to share a little bit about yourself. I mean, this is a very people-oriented profession that we're in. We love people. We love to get to know our students, and here's your opportunity to let us get to know you. So there are additional ways for you to let us know things. If there's a circumstance that you want to explain, you can put that in your essay, but you don't have to. If there's something that you went through, there's opportunities to upload additional information. There is a question, I think it's called community disruption, and it was considered the COVID question. I actually read something today where somebody had, again, answered the COVID question, but there was nothing that had happened. He didn't like online learning. It was hard being isolated, which it was, but that was something that impacted all of us. So if you had a special circumstance that maybe impacted your grades, your both parents were frontline workers, one of your parents was a frontline worker, you had a relative who was ill, you were ill, whatever that was, if it was above and beyond what happened to everybody else, you certainly can include that. If there are other circumstances having nothing to do with COVID, you have the opportunity to add that. Also, if you have, an additional resume, there is an opportunity to put all of, I think, up to 10 activities on the Common Application. But if you have more things you want to talk about, if you want to get more detailed about something that you did, you have research you want to upload, artwork, you have the opportunity to do that.
So these are spaces you can use, but you do not have to use. So we read a lot of, in March 2020, the world changed, and yep, we were all there. Actually, for this was before high school for all of you, so you probably don't have as much to explain about your grades. But I'm still reading about Hurricane Sandy. That was major on Long Island, and it was a natural disaster that had a huge impact. So these are places that you can tell us something, but don't feel like you have to use that space. So that's up to 250 words, but then there's a whole other space that's as long as the other essay. And I think a lot of times students try to crowd their essay. They want to write about pizza, but they also want to say what happened to their grades junior year and why they went down. They probably aren't related, right? So you'd want to leave your essay just about pizza, and then make your additional information be the place where you tell us what was going on. Often that is, we need to know if your grades went down, not because you didn't really care anymore, but because you were grappling with something really difficult. Their illnesses, death, divorce, things that happen that are beyond your control. If I know that that was happening at home, I'm not going to punish you more or make it harder for you by looking at those grades and saying, oh, well, didn't do so well. I'm going to say, wow, must have been rough. Of course their grades went down, but maybe I'm going to ask for senior grades. Not all schools do that, but some schools may ask for senior grades. Are things back on track? We'll see the courses you're taking, but we need to, any offer of admission, it means that you have to keep up that level of performance, right? If you really drop the ball senior year and fail all your classes, that offer of admission can be taken away. So mostly that space is used when someone has something to explain, but there are other times when it's positive, when you got a major award maybe, and there wasn't really a lot of space on the Common Application to talk about that, but you didn't write your essay about it. You could use some of this space to just make sure that we are spending, you know enough about what you accomplished and can really appreciate it. So sometimes it's a positive thing too. Basically, you want to step back from your application and think, is everything that we need to know about you to make an informed decision somewhere in that application? Because a lot of times students will leave off. They don't tell us about activities, or there was a student who applied from Hollow Hills a few years ago who wrote all about, in his essay about building a computer in his garage. It was a great essay. The grades did take a dip junior year, and it was only in the counselor letter that I found out the student had cancer junior year. I mean, I might have written my essay about that, but the student didn't. And I met him and I said, I was so interested that you chose. He said, well, that just happened to me. I didn't want that. That happened, but I love computers and I want to study computer science. So that's what I wanted to write about. And I thought that was great. But thank goodness the counselor had put it in the letter so that we knew what was happening.
So in addition to the main essay that you're going to write, many of the schools you apply to are going to have supplemental essays. Sometimes they're optional. Penn State happens to have an optional supplemental essay. It definitely is optional, but I look at it as an opportunity. If I'm between a few students, everything else equal, and one student took the time to really, and the essay is, why would you be successful at Penn State? Why do you want to go to Penn State? Certainly that's going to have a little bit of weight. Oftentimes these supplemental essays are about why do you want to go to this particular college, and it is a great opportunity for you to really set yourself apart and show that it's just one of your 20 schools that you're applying to and you haven't really thought that much about it, but to really take the time and not just say, I want to go to that school because there's a good football team and the campus is pretty, but I want to go to that school because there's a club that they have that I really would love to get involved with, or there's a class or a major that I'm really interested in, or there's a professor who I read an article by or who's doing research. So take your time. I mean, if you have the opportunity to visit the school, take notes when you do, because oftentimes there'll be something that happens when you're on your visit that you'll be able to add to that type of an essay. Talk to any people that you know that went to the school or go to that school. But if you don't get to visit and you don't know anybody, you can get all the information you need to write a really successful essay right on the website. Sometimes there are other prompts that aren't why this school. Sometimes they're just random things. Tell me your favorite word and why, or, your life is a book. Tell us about page 217. So there's all kinds of creative things. Tell us about a community that you're part of. I'm trying to think of other ones that I have heard. So, those essays, even though they're kind of secondary to you because you've put so much time and effort into writing your main essay, sometimes those essays are even more important to the schools that ask you to do them, because they're really trying to get a sense of you in a way that maybe the general essay is not going to give them, or they're trying to see how you think compared to how other people that are applying think. So put time and effort into those supplemental essays as well. As soon as the Common App opens, which is on August 1st, you are able to go on and see what supplemental essays are there for any of the schools that you're interested in.
Yeah, and I think the pitfall here is that students don't give enough time for these. And as Laurie said, they're often more important to the school. So if you have a very hurried, not well proofread essay here, that's not going to be good, especially these are often very selective schools, and they need to find reasons. Lots of the applicants are admissible. It's not can you do the work? It's of the, tens of thousands of applications that they have, which lucky few get selected to be accepted, right? I mean, last year, Harvard's acceptance rate was under 4%. That's, and probably 99% of the students were, had really good grades. And so definitely take the time with these supplemental essays. Don't want to leave any essay to the last minute, but certainly not those.
And I just want to say, some of these essays, especially the Why This College, sometimes you can do a little cut and pasting. Sometimes there are, you can pick a club from one school and a club from another school, and that's okay. That's fine. You can tailor that essay. But if you do that, make sure you're proofreading and you're having the correct name of the school and of the city that the school is in, because we do see that. I mean, I have definitely seen essays. I had one that was talking about Delaware this year. I had one last year where the student couldn't wait to get to Madison. We're in State College. So, just try to be careful with your proofreading and your cut and pasting.
I used to work at Columbia Law School, and a lot of people couldn't wait to be in New Haven. And it's like, nope, wrong. New York is where Columbia is. Laurie mentioned something which is so important, which is about taking notes, or, you always have your phone with you. Take pictures. If you're visiting 4 schools in a weekend, they'll all be great. They'll all trust us. Between us, we have 6 children, and they're all done with college. I'm smiling because this is my first year not having college tuition in a very long time. But, I just remember those college trips, and they all start to blend together. And so if you end up needing to write a supplemental essay, if you've written down some things, just on your phone, take some pictures. Loved this. Gosh, there was the therapy dog in the library. It was great. Or emotional support dog. I loved it. That could be a fun essay, right? So make sure that you are able to keep track, because we do sort of all run into each other. So we've talked about some of the cardinal rules of the college essay, where you have to consider the prompt and answer the question. The word count is super important. Using your own voice and words is incredibly important. We'll talk a little bit more about ChatGPT, AI. It's here to stay. Nothing wrong with a little help in this process, right? You could go to the library or a bookstore and see some great essays, and certainly you could get a draft from ChatGPT, but you're not going to hand that in. Some people do. And we're pretty good at detecting it, and there are colleges that are using, they're now AI filters that the school can use, just like professors can use things like Turnitin.com and make sure you didn't plagiarize that essay, take it from somewhere. You can pay people to write. Your parents might want to have a very heavy hand in this. Don't do that. Use the words that you would use. It just doesn't ring true when you're reading an essay that should be written by a 17-year-old, maybe 16, maybe 18, and it sounds like a professor, right? Or you don't need to use, the big words aren't always the best words, and it's just not going to sound like you. And whenever we do we come here in the summer, and we'll read drafts of your essay. There are a bunch of schools that come, and that's really great to get the feedback. But a lot of times there'll be a phrase, and I'll ask students, really? Is that how you'd say it? And it's usually, oh, my mom or my parents hired a consultant, and they said to do this. Some words we just know when it sounds like teenager. You want to be appropriate, right? I mean, but this is not a middle school essay where you need set up your topic sentence and, body A, B, C, conclusion. Yes, you want it to be well written, but you have a lot of freedom. This is creative writing. You could do a poem, you could do a song. We see all sorts of things. We like to see paragraphs because sometimes, a lot of times, they're just one paragraph with sentences that are 9 lines long and very little punctuation, and the word I is not capitalized. It's hard to read an essay like that. You want to make it easy for your reader. So break up those sentences, have some paragraphs, but don't, we'll get to the don'ts later. But do use your own voice. We've talked about being positive. There's a difference between proofreading and spell check. Spell check will tell you if it's a word, but not if it's the word you meant. So last year, a student confused, they were really proud of overcoming all diversity. And I looked at it, and it was a strange thing I didn't understand it until I realized that he'd meant adversity. And those are 2 similar words, long, similar letters. So you want to be...
Spell check would not catch that.
I see just today, I saw one of the ones that it was in the activities about making honor roll. R-O-L-E versus R-O-L-L. And honor roll is R-O-L-L. A really great essay from a student about the stock market and how her dad taught her all about it and how much she loved it. And stock market 9 times. S-T-A-L-K. Spell check didn't have a problem with that. But, is that the end of the world? No, but that's embarrassing for, once you realize that and you have to email the colleges and think, oh no, they're going to not accept me. I mean, sometimes I'm relieved to see an honest mistake because I know the student actually wrote it. So that's something. That's some consolation if you end up, letting an essay go that wasn't quite ready to go. But it's not illegal to get some help, and you should have someone else read your essay. English teacher, counselor, parent, friend, other people, fresh eyes seeing that essay for the first time are going to they would have caught that diversity, adversity, right? That would have jumped right out. So.
Right. So you definitely want other people to proofread it, but you don't want too many other people, because if too many people have a hand in it, it starts to dilute it and it's no longer your voice. So just 2 maybe trusted people, and read it out loud. Reading it out loud really helps you sometimes you'll catch something reading it out loud that you wouldn't catch if you're just reading it. I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that nobody can tell your story as well as you can tell your story. So there is really no point in having ChatGPT or somebody else write your story. It won't sound like you. And as stressful as it might be to think about writing this essay, most students, once they do write the essay, are really proud of what they've written. And usually they're so heartfelt. That's why we love them so much. So don't take away this opportunity that you have to share your story. So a couple things to keep in mind that you should not do. Again, we did talk about this already. You don't want to write about obstacles or flaws that you have not overcome or learned something about. And you definitely don't want to write about anything that is offensive or might demonstrate bias. And generally, it's always better to be positive about yourself and others. I have read a few essays over the years where a student clearly was angry at their parents, and in that moment, that's what they wrote about. Not the best way to use your few precious words that you're talking about yourself. So, and don't be modest. Your college application is no place for modesty. Certainly, anything that you do and that you've accomplished, you should be proud of. There's no shame in sharing your accomplishments and talking about things that you've done that you're proud of. Don't let somebody else have the last word. Sometimes we see quotes used. Sometimes people start with a quote. It's fine. I would definitely not end with a quote. We kind of want to hear your last words being from you. I don't know that, generally speaking, quotes ever really add to the essay. Again, this is a story about you. Maybe if you're writing about some other subject area, a quote comes in handy. But and it depends on the essay that you're writing. But just keep in mind, you have limited words, and we really want to hear from you. And you don't want to use the wrong word, as Kate talked about, but you also want to avoid overusing the thesaurus. I'm going to turn this over to Kate to talk about our favorite essay.
Well, the thesaurus is great, right? Because instead of saying big 10 times, you can say enormous, gigantic, huge, massive. There are all sorts of great words, right? But sometimes they're not quite the right word. So there was an essay last year that a student, it was a very powerful essay, would have been great with normal words, and a lot of right clicking. So instead of saying, when my father came home, the student said, when my father peregrinated home. So I'm pretty sure no one has probably used that word today. It's, I think, involved with migration. There were words I had to look up, like obnubilate, day of inception money for birthday, and it was quite something, and it detracts from the essay, right? I mean, if it's not and if you read aloud, like Lori said, if it doesn't flow, if you don't know what the word means, maybe I know, maybe I don't, but it's not the right word if it's not a word that you would use, for sure.
Keep in mind, we are reading a lot of essays. We don't have the luxury of spending as much time on each one as we might like to. So if we're confused and we have to look things up and things aren't clear and making sense, it just takes away. We don't
like acronyms too.
Oh, yes. So, and we might not know if there's a really popular club here that has an acronym that we might not be familiar with. Don't assume that we know what it is. Anything that's not common knowledge, you do want to spell out.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a lot of essays say something without which my application wouldn't be complete without is my, interest in art. Is that a better first line than I am so envious of shrimp? I don't think so. I think the one that's interesting, that grabs your reader, that, puts your reader where you are, set the scene. Think about if you're picking up a book to read it, sometimes you read that first paragraph and you're interested, you're engaged, you're excited, and sometimes you're kind of dreading the next however many pages. These are short, this is not a whole book, but we kind of feel the same way. We're always excited, we'll always read it. Most of the essays are fine, and not everyone needs to be, not everyone wants to be a writer or is a fantastic writer. That's okay, but everyone has a story, and you do need to be able to write standard English and work on that and make sure that you know about writing, drafting, rewriting, all those things that all those skills you will keep on honing in college. So really, I think a lot of times, there just really is a weak finish, or students feel like they have to say, and that's why I want to go to college. And we know you want to go to college. We're reading your essay. We've talked a lot about ChatGPT. I think my only other thought there is that when you look at the whole picture, the whole puzzle and all the pieces, if a student consistently had English grades all through high school in the low 70s, and suddenly you read an essay, this happened today too, with really not very good English grades, and the essay was a thing of perfection when it came to grammar and style and using sort of slightly big words, it just didn't seem quite in keep. It looked like some machine or some person had too heavy a hand in that. So again, that's not to say that someone couldn't really be a great writer and not have done very well in English, but I think we'll catch it if we're pretty good at catching that.
Usually they're so heartfelt that, I don't know, you can tell that it's written by the person who's telling their story. And as Kate said, as far as repeating the prompt, usually we can see the prompt. We see what you're answering, so there's no need to repeat it.
Oh, I jumped right ahead.
Right.
I think we've answered a lot of these, but I do find that students and families are also always wonder, like, how colleges read essays, how they review applications. And it was talked about earlier, it's very different. Sometimes you have a committee, sometimes one person reads it, sometimes it has two reads. Some schools get 90,000 applications and they're really not reading the essay. They're seeing if it's done, they're giving it a quick glance. Lori and I love the essay, so we really do read them. And sometimes it is the essay. If I'm on the fence about whether to admit a student, sometimes a really strong essay pushes them. A really strong letter from a teacher or a counselor can be the thing that makes me advocate for that student and pushes them in the yes pile. So every single piece is important, some more important than others. Of course your transcript is the most important piece, but really every piece is important. And back to, this is why people dread it, because they don't know what to do, but it's also the one thing you can still is totally under your control. And if you give yourself enough time, you can write a great essay that's going to really help your application. So
right, and again, as with every other piece of the application, we should learn something different. So you can write in detail about something that you're passionate about, but you wouldn't want to just list the things that you do or your activities. So it's just another piece that we get to put it all together, but it is like the cherry on the top, in my opinion.
If you don't know what to write about, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Sometimes it's hard to know something you just have always done. You've played tennis since you were 4. It seems very normal to you, but not everyone plays tennis. So maybe that would be a good thing to write about. I see some people taking pictures. This is all going to be available, so you'll have the whole presentation if you want it. But there are some things you can do if you're struggling with getting started.
Right. So, think about your accomplishments, think about your skills and your interests. What is it that really, what do you do that maybe not everybody else does? As Kate said, it is also a really good idea to talk to your friends. Like, what do you think sets me apart? What would you write about if, knowing me, what would you talk about? Sometimes somebody will come up with something that you hadn't even thought of. So give that some thought, things that, think about if there's an activity or something you're involved with, what inspired you to get involved in that. Just take notes. I would write a few different topics down, maybe some bullet points about each of them. And then, again, I would not limit to writing about one specific thing. I would have a few different things going. Chances are these extra essays you start will come in handy when you get to those supplemental essays. You can talk about what you want to do if you know. It's totally fine not to have any idea what you want to study, by the way. Do not stress about that. But if you are putting down a particular major, and I know that there are some schools that the essay is, why did you pick the major or the academic college that you chose? So give that some thought. Think about, why am I interested in this? What have I done that has led to me having this interest? So those are just some things. I don't know if we missed anything here.
Speaking of interest, has anyone heard about demonstrated interest in the college process? People know what that is? We almost all use a customer relationship management system, a CRM, that we can see a lot of information. We can tell if you opened our emails. We can tell if you clicked on our emails. We can tell if you visit our campus. We can tell if you signed up for a virtual program. When Lori and I come back here next week and there's a college fair, we will know if you talk. Well, we'll only know that we talked to you if you fill out a card or scan the QR code. So you may or may not be interested in Penn State or SUNY Oswego, but if you take a picture of these QR codes and see what we're asking for. So here's our little test. Will anyone show up at the fair prepared, maybe creating a set of labels? Name, date of birth, email address. Try not to use school email addresses if they have a firewall, and you might want a unique email address for the college process, and maybe one for the search and one for the schools when you apply, because email addresses are free and you want to look at those emails. We send a lot. I apologize. I don't expect you to read all of them, but those emails are important. There's sometimes scholarship opportunities or events happening here on Long Island. So and the fact that we can tell if you opened them at all, if I have one spot left and 2 applicants and they both have the same grades and I'm looking for reasons, why would I want to give a spot to someone who really has no interest in Oswego? As there are all these ways you can demonstrate your interest. But we can't remember that we talked to you unless you leave us, you fill out something. And really name, date of birth, email address, the high school you go to, which we know, and your year of graduation is the most important. There's some other fields like address or parents' email or what you want to study, and that's fine too. But if you're prepared, think of how much better use and how many more schools you can engage with at a fair if you're not spending all the time writing down. And half the time, I can't read the writing. Is it a 1, an L, an I? Right. And then you're not getting any credit for that interest.
Make sure you bring your phone. There are some schools, Penn State has ceased using cards at all because we couldn't read the writing and it was just too much and we had too many of them. So when I come to a college fair, I have a code just like that. You scan it. There's a quick form that you fill out with just the basic information Kate talked about. So some schools still have the cards, some schools don't. But the bottom line is I was actually at a college fair today, and all I could think of was if these students had heard Kate and my presentation, they would be filling out those cards and they would be scanning the QR codes so much more, because I had all these students come up that were interested but didn't want to fill out anything out, didn't want to scan the code. I will have no idea. If I go to read their application and I go to see, have I met this student? Did they come to anything? It won't look like they did. So we're going to be here next week, I guess, for the college fair. Make sure for all of the schools that you go up to, if you're interested, make sure you give them your information.
Yeah, and I think we have some time for questions. Really, could be about any part of the process. I feel like we probably gave a lot of detail. Hope it was helpful. Did anyone get an idea for an essay? Any of the students from reading this?
That's
No,
good.
but we have a question.
Exciting.
There was?
Yes.
Oh, yay!
Awesome.
Yes. I meant like Avery labels, 30 on a page, business labels. Think about 30 schools. You're probably not going to apply to that many. You'd peel them off, put them on, or and then you'll for Lori's, you'd be scanning, and then you just type it on your phone, so she'll be able to read it.
And you have codes. So most
Sometimes.
schools do have the codes. So if you have your phone and you just quickly, and usually it's a quick form that you have to fill out, just a few things.
But really, demonstrated interest. Some schools don't use it. But how could it hurt you that you took the time to learn? And, when you do engage with us in all those different ways, you are going to make a much better, more informed decision, right? Because you're trying to find, there's so many great schools out there, but you're really trying to find the one that's right for you. And you need to ask these questions and sort of really think about, I think one of the best pieces of advice would be to sort of try to block out the noise and really for students to focus on what your gut feeling is when you visit, because you generally know if you're going to be happy there or not. Yes? Yeah. Yes, it's a great question about letters of recommendation. Sometimes schools have advice. The general rule of thumb is to have 2 letters, one from a math and social or math or science, sort of a STEM letter, or English and social studies. That said, if you want to study art, you'd want the art teacher. Sometimes there are teachers who are coaches, and you might have outside letters. Those are different in terms of submitting them to schools because, that's a different process, because your guidance office is going to send the letters, the counselor letter and also the teacher letters. It's an important question also because some schools will let you send as many letters as you want. Sweet. Some schools, Binghamton, only one, right, for Binghamton, I think?
None are required, 4 are allowed for Penn State.
There's so much subtle variation for all of this, how we look at test, or most of us are test optional, but even a test optional school might have a program that requires a test. I like to say for letters of recommendation, if you came to Huntington High School tomorrow and they said, you don't have class, go hang out with a teacher, whoever you want to hang out with, my guess is that's the right teacher because you have a connection. Yeah. Oh, I say it all the time. Oh, good. Good for you.
You're ahead of the game.
Absolutely, especially if that's your passion, if that's what you want. These letters, you don't get to see them. We do. They're really heartfelt. They really add to your application, right? They know you better than we know you. And so we rely on that. And we, as I said before, sometimes it's the counselor or the teacher that tells us what was happening at home or the context that we really need to understand, what's going on behind those numbers.
It's so much better for us if we get a letter that's sharing a little bit about your character or how, if you are helping out in class, if you speak up in class. We don't need to hear what the grades are from the teacher because we have that on your transcript. So really, anybody who can give us a different perspective or an additional perspective on you. And as Kate said, the person that you would most like to spend your time with if you could.
I'll tell you my favorite letter last year. So I am a freak for word puzzles. So I read this letter. It was from a counselor, and it said, every day, every morning, my morning begins with Lori Wax, coming by my door and holding up her hand. Sometimes it's 3 fingers, sometimes it's 4. They had a little Wordle competition going. And I was like, what a great, they clearly, here's a student who's engaging with his counselor in a way that they have this sort of thing that they do, talking about doing Wordle. It was great, and again, I'm not going to know that about the student, but it was a lovely touch, I thought. So good for you. Ask teachers already.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Nope. No, whichever is most convenient for you to use.
SUNY pays me, but I will tell you honestly, I prefer the Common App.
I totally prefer the Common App.
It is a better app. It's more comprehensive. It has a better layout. Why would you fill out more than one if you don't have to? If you're only applying to SUNY, sure. If you do this, it's a fine application.
Or the free SUNY.
Well, so you can use the Common App. For the free SUNY weeks we've had, you can apply to 5 SUNYs for free, which I hope we have again next year. You could use any of the applications. But I think you wouldn't want to fill out more than you have to. And the Common Application is accepted by more than 1,000 schools. There's some bizarre outliers like Georgetown, FIT. But those are outliers. Almost every school you're going to apply to is on the Common Application. So I'd say that's generally what you want, unless you're only applying in Pennsylvania, only in New York.
And even still, I definitely personally, we say we have no preference. My personal preference is the Common App because we see so many. It's just easier to see side by side with other applications.
We also don't care about SAT versus ACT. Interchangeable. And now look at Dartmouth went back to being test required few weeks ago, and now Yale is gone, but Yale went test flexible, which if you're not familiar with that alphabet soup, there's test required, right? Which means you have to take the SAT or ACT. Test optional, truly optional. We're not just saying that and judging you if you don't send a test score. If you're test optional, you don't think your test scores are good reflection, your grades are better reflection, don't send the test scores. Test flexible, you could use SAT, ACT, International Baccalaureate, IB, or AP Advanced Placement. Then they'll look at other kinds of tests. And then there's test blind, like the University of California system, or CUNY, the City University of New York system. You could have a 1600 on the SAT. They won't look at it.
So there are 7 prompts for the general college essay that are on the Common Application. One of them is, number 7 is topic of your choice. So you can write right now whatever essay you want, and it can be answering topic of your choice. As far as supplemental essays go, though, you will likely have other essays that you have to write. They're not out yet. They'll be out when, some might be. You could go on specific school websites. Some might have announced what their supplemental essays are. But most applications are going to be available August 1st, and at that point you'll be able to see what the prompts are.
But these are the prompts for you next year if you're a junior. They are already out, and you can use number 7 and write about whatever you want, or look and see if another one you like better. So, and this presentation is available to you, so you can go back and read them, or just Google them. Okay. No, you choose whichever you want. Totally up to you. You are in the driver's seat. This is your essay. You get to decide. And, students really write about anything. But Lori mentioned that we sometimes see very dark essays, and we didn't think we could see more, and then COVID happened. And we read a lot of essays about some pretty tough topics, and it's fine. I sort of think sometimes that I don't know that students write a whole lot about themselves and do reflective writing. So when they start to write, they're writing about whatever's really on their mind or sort of maybe troubling them. Maybe that's why they write about being mad at their parents, or because it's just that night that they are. But I think you want to think about how you leave your reader, and am I worried about your health and safety, and are you ready to go away to school? So sometimes I read essays, and I read one, and it was about multiple suicide attempts, and that if you're not in a better place, I think it's probably not the best thing, right, to write about.
But I have read many essays talking about overcoming anxiety and depression, and most of them are showing how they came through something, and they seem fine now and great, and that was what was on their mind. That's what
and learning differences, a lot about learning differences.
And late diagnosed learning differences.
But even more about the big game. A lot about sports and a lot about grandparents. But why? Because they're all good topics. But if you're going to write about a topic that we see hundreds of essays every year about, reading about grandparents, reading about sports, is yours going to stand out? How is yours going to be different? How's yours going to be special? A few years ago, someone wrote about baseball as if they were the ball. That was different, right? You can mix it up a little bit if if you're so inclined and want to get really creative, but you can write about whatever you want.
Yes.
There.
Right. Yeah.
There's one called Slate. It's a CRM that almost every school uses.
Very big brother. And even if, and you can actually ask a school if they track demonstrated interest, and some actually it's part of the the admissions review. Some, for us, it's not technically part of our admissions review, but we're only human. And if a student has reached out and shown up at everything, of course, how can we not advocate for that student?
It aggregates a lot of information. They're adding an AI piece too. We'll see what they come up with.
Yes. And then you.
Well, so it depends if you're aiming high, right? I mean, if you're looking at a school like, Binghamton, Stony Brook, they're highly selective schools, just like a highly selective Ivy League, or, they are going to want to see challenging courses, but not everyone needs to take all AP or IB. Maybe if you're aiming really high, they're going to expect that you're taking dual enrollment where you get college credit, or IB or AP or honors, whatever your school offers. But it's, of course, most important that a student find the level that's right for them, because you don't want to take an AP and have a 75. That's going to hurt you more. Maybe better to take the regular Regents level and do really well. So I'll talk about how Oswego does it, and then Lori can talk about it. So we like to see, so New York State doesn't make you take math or science or world language beyond a certain point, right? So we like to count those units. So we like to see 12 units. Have you stuck with it? Now, if you took accelerated math or science in 8th grade, or if you have some world language from a language wheel before, those, if it's on your high school transcript, it counts. But dropping, senior year, having 5 free periods is not the way to go if you're wanting to portray yourself as a serious student. I believe in having a lunch period, but, stick with whatever you're comfortable with. I know some people are language exempt, that's a separate thing. We know that's going to affect it, but then maybe add a little more science, or add a little more math. So we're going to look at that. We look at Regents level and above, but SUNYs will accept up to 30 credits from APs or IBs. So generally you'll get 3 college credits. It's used however helps you most. I mean, we could talk about this. I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but bottom line, most college degrees are 120 credits. If you had 10 APs and brought in 30 credits, you could finish within 3 years probably and save yourself a lot of time and money. I mean, for the SUNYs, it's a 3 or higher on an AP, which is pretty generous.
4 or 5.
So other schools, and at some schools, my oldest went to UPenn, you needed a 5, and they wouldn't take anything for English. They wouldn't take, some of them they wouldn't take. But for the SUNY system, it doesn't matter if it's, Buffalo or Old Westbury. I think of 2 schools far away in different kinds of schools that, they'll up to 30. You just send the official score report. For the dual enrollment, you want to make sure you pay that few $100s. They'll be the cheapest credits you get. I mean, a SUNY credit is a little under $600, but if you can get 3 credits for a St. John's course for $300, I mean, that's incredible, right? I mean, those will be, and those can really help you with even things like the Excelsior Scholarship, if you're familiar with that. You need to be a full-time student. Let's say you dropped a course, you could fill in that gap with things like AP, IB, dual enrollment courses, college credits that you earned before. So it can help your application. You're ready for college because you're already doing college level work, and then it can literally pay off because you're already on your way to earning a college degree. But do you want to talk about how you, you said that?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. I mean, you just definitely want to, we always like to see students challenging themselves to the point where they are able to do it without struggling. So that helps. And I know you've been patiently waiting. So Big Brother.
We could, all we really do, if you're a brilliant student or if your average is you're going to get in, right? I mean, I'm not going to worry if you, and if your grades are, if it's really just too low,
No matter how many times you reached out, as much as I wish.
I think it comes into play for me when I'm on the fence and I'm looking at those tiebreaker things, the things that make a difference. And for me, interest is important. Whether they really, care. I would rather give my spots to a student, who's interested. So a lot of, there was a tab we can look, but I don't go that deep into how much. I can't tell if your child opens it or you do. I mean, if you're students, if you share it with your parents, they can help you filter through them and sort through the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of them.
I mean, when I look at an application, I do go on to the CRM just to see if I've met the student, if they've corresponded with me. Not in a negative way to say if they haven't, it's bad, but if they reached out to me to tell me about a specific thing, I want to make sure if I'm looking at their application that I remember what it is they may have told me. So it can never hurt you to show your interest and to reach out. And sometimes there are different nuances to our application processes that we can't get the word out to everybody, but the students that are really interested, that are calling and asking, what are my best chances, what do I do to increase my chances and things like that, we can help offer some tips. So
we can also add email correspondence. You can, and sometimes I put notes about phone calls. If a counselor calls me to advocate for a student, or if I know students emailed me a lot, and I read almost all the Long Island applications, but there's nothing to stop my colleagues, if they have some time, from helping me out and reading some of the applications. I would want them to know that this is a student that I've interacted with. Lori gets a whole lot of, I think you get more emails than I do of people who really just, and they're sending Lori emails every day.
I think it is wonderful. I love getting an email from a student, and I get a lot of them. I just really excited about Penn State. I just want to introduce myself, and I love that. I then sometimes also get emails from students that I think are just looking for reasons to engage, which I understand. But then will ask me for, questions that, and, keep in mind, we have a lot of applications, a lot of students that we're dealing with and trying to take care of. So they'll ask me questions that are easily found on the website. So you don't want to reach out and say, how's your psychology program?
I got that today. Can you tell me everything about your psychology program?
Right. Not really. Go on the website.
Not in the 3 minutes I have to answer your email.
Exactly. So, it's fine to just call, email, introduce yourself. If you have and there are questions that you maybe can't find on the website, and those are fine to ask. But
or to follow up and say, I met you at Huntington. I want to let you know I visited State College and I loved it, but I do have a question. And that should be a question that isn't, what's your average class size? Or
if we come and visit and you have AP chemistry, so you couldn't get to the visit, but you want to let me know that if you could have come, you would have. It's always good to say, I know you were at my school. I would have really liked to come down, but I had AP chemistry. If I missed anything, let me know. So those are always, there's no downside to reaching out like that.
You know you're interested in a school, and through Naviance, which you have, right, that Lori Wax is coming to your school for an individual visit, and you have AP Chem, you could also just swing by and say, I'm so sorry I can't stay. You could scan that code. It really counts the same. Right. You've shown your interest, right? You demonstrate that. Do you have another?
Well, if you have an exemption, you have an exemption, and so we're not going to hold that against you. Is that the question? Am I understanding?
It's such a person. I mean, this gets into
We do require, but there are exemptions. And
so
for those students,
one thing to think about is if you didn't have any world language in high school, many colleges have a language requirement. Right. That's 2 semesters. This is an important point. If you stick with world language, maybe I couldn't convince my sons. Would they listen to me? No. If you have 4 units, you actually don't need to take foreign language or world language in college. So if you're not loving that, stick with it one more year and you won't have to do it in college, or do it a fun way and study abroad. I think that's a great way to do that language requirement. So, so maybe sticking with it, but if we don't see any world language or ASL on a transcript, we know that a student didn't have that. So I'm going to make a note that there's no world language. At Oswego, though we have a language requirement, there are other ways to satisfy that requirement without taking a language. So, and that gets us to accommodations, which all schools have. All schools have free tutoring. All schools have a free writing center. But if any students get accommodations, have an IEP or Section 504, and get those accommodations through college, you're going to want to meet with that office, because that's going to be an important part of your college experience. They're great. 2 of my children had IEPs, and then one of my children's amazing teachers is here today, so shout out. But they never used their accommodations because there was so much support in college, and in college you get to study what you love and play to your strengths. So I'll say that with my mom hat on. But there are ways to do it. If you want to talk about that in your essay or explain, that's fine, but it's not going to be a problem. You just need to be aware of it if it's a requirement. And are you going to then take a language because maybe you want to, or what are the ways you could satisfy that requirement because you want to graduate from college? Fair?
Did that answer?
But we always joke, we probably said this back in January. Are we the Office of Admission or Rejection? Admission. What are we looking for? We're not looking for reasons not to admit you. We're looking, at least I look for reasons to admit students, right? What were your best? What are your strengths? What are your passions? What are you going to bring to our campus? What clubs are you in high school? So you're going to come do that at our schools. So students often stress about their bad days, doing not well on one Regents exam. It's not the end of we'll see it. But if I see a strong grade in that course.
And we won't even look at it. So you don't need to worry about the regions, just the class.
So with that being said, with the special fields, as you are reviewing transcripts, I know that you look at the regions.
We look at the class.
I see that. I'm looking really, we do holistic review. Everything's important, and I'm looking at the context. So if I see there was appeal, if I see someone took it a few times and then did well, I'm impressed by that. I'm looking for, overcoming and persevering and not giving up, right? That's, I think, what we want to see. I think one of the bigger issues actually is that there's not consistency in high school transcripts. So sometimes you see all the attempts, sometimes you only see the passes, sometimes some high schools only show you the weighted GPA, and most schools will recalculate. Since we weren't talking about the whole picture, we didn't really talk about this, but we do focus on your unweighted grades. Many schools, not all, some schools will take your weighted GPA, but a lot of schools are going to look at your your unweighted grades in core courses: English, math, social studies, science, and world language, and see. So 99s in electives may make your GPA look good, but it might not be the GPA that a college. So again, look at your transcript the way a college is going to look at it. And that's a great question for colleges. Are you using my unweighted? How do you review applications so you can then have a better sense maybe of how you're stacking up? Because you can look at a school's median GPA, the grade point average, the test scores, and
Which is not to say we don't give extra value to an AP class or an IB class. We do. We just recalculate it using the same weighting for every student that took an AP class, as opposed to Huntington doing one weighting, Harborfield's doing another, and that's just neighbors in the town of Huntington. They are totally different all over.
Yeah, so some schools have you get 1.1. Our kids went to Harborfield and got 1.15, but there are other schools that give 1.2.
Right.
So how is it fair that your 99 is 108 somewhere else, right? Or some schools don't have APs at all. Those students didn't have a chance to get some boost to their GPA.
So we're just really looking at the class you took, the level of that class. We are giving some value to a upper level type class. And so when you're looking at those middle 50% ranges, as Kate said, you use your unweighted GPA, you're going to have a better sense really of where you might fall.
Yeah, and then for test scores, which we're really, most of us are test optional, if a school super scores, do you know what that is? Where if you took the test more than once and did better on the SAT, the math one time, evidence-based reading and writing the other, we're going to build that higher score, which again, we're looking for your happy, shining moments, not the moments you didn't feel good about.
Yeah.
Yes and no. There are people where you have alumni. I mean, there's so many conflicts on Long Island.
Right, tonight there are other people representing us at another
Or
college fair.
poor
somewhere.
Oswego is not represented tonight because I'm here. But sometimes it's an alumnus or alumna. Sometimes their regional jobs. When I worked for Geneseo, I was really just doing the recruiting and I wasn't reviewing applications. So most of the people behind the table will be the ones reading your application. We tend to be pretty friendly, talkative people, right? So students who are sometimes a little afraid, just ask us questions because it can only help you. You're going to get more information. And then it's really lovely when we read the applications, when I remember interactions. And my brain is, I do get my brain jogged when I see those connections. And it's really nice.
Right. And those of us who read applications are definitely the ones that usually visit the school. So come to those.
Yeah, and there are lots of fairs. You mentioned the ones, and those are big fairs. The SUNY one next week. But next Tuesday, there's a SUNY fair at Farmingdale. That's every single SUNY will be there. 5:30 to 8:30. You register ahead of time, and then you don't even need labels. You have a code. Then we have these scanners, and it just beeps, and everything goes. And that's really great. Tuesday, yeah. So just Google SUNY Long Island Fair. There's one in the city, and register ahead of time. And here's the tip: everyone gets there early and waits, and then goes and stands behind, Binghamton. If you want to talk to people, come a little bit later. It clears out. So don't be, we'll be there the whole time. I would suggest you come a little later.
And actually, at the Jacob Javits Center on Sunday is a
yeah.
giant fair that 1,000 schools will be at. So.
If you go to our Friday flyer, Mrs. Walsh in the college office posts an abundance of information with regards to programs, summer jobs, volunteers, scholarship opportunities, college visits. So you'll see every Friday there's information with regards to those opportunities to go face to face with college admissions reps, but also through Naviance, we've had reps sign in, and then you'll be able to meet with these college reps either virtually or they have been coming in. We started the in-person visits, and that's a very intimate way to touch base and ask questions. So we encourage you to do that.
It's okay. We'll go by anything. Yeah. We'll be here. We love coming here. We both happen to live in the Harbor Fields district, so it's very easy. Yes.
Two questions. First, what is the acronym using IB?
Oh, International Baccalaureate. It's more the European. It's a whole curriculum. Some schools have actually an IB diploma that students get, but not every school has it.
It's similar to an
COMAC
APB,
has it.
but just a different version. Of
But
an
they
advanced
take a
level
big
class.
exam, and for the SUNYs, it's a 4 or higher, whether it's SL or HL.
And then I had not appreciated the value of paying for the dual enrollment. If my daughter expects to spend a full 4 years in college, I'm not looking to make her skip the 4th year by having all of her.
But she could do an internship or an externship or double major or do other things to really.
Take extra electives, get placed out of things.
But it seems like you're saying there's a value in the application, the strength of the
Oh.
application by having paid the.
No, only the value, of course, is getting that college level. I mean, that has value for the application. I think there's an additional value, which is that, things happen. Sometimes people get sick, people are distracted. There are a lot of distractions in college. I may have had a child drop a class. That may have happened. But if you can slot in a credit that you got before, you will stay on track and finish within 4 years. Yeah, no, why rush the best 4 years of your life? You know, there's so many things to do in college. I wouldn't rush it, but sometimes people are going on to medical school or they're doing something where they have many, many years and they are eager to.
And the AP scores and the IB scores are not part of the evaluation for admission. There's something that gives you credit, so they don't even get their scores after senior year until the summer, so it's not at all part of the admissions decision, but it is something that is used to give credit. So it won't hurt you in the application process, but
But it does ask you the scores if you took an AP class, advanced placement class in 10th or 11th grade. We're going to see that there's a spot. But again, so sometimes students, they say, oh, I only got a 2. I say, you took the class and you got a solid grade in the class. You learned the material. That's most important.
Right, we're using the class grade, but not necessarily the test score in the evaluation.
So we have the right to, and it happens. Look at those students who were unadmitted to Harvard based on their posts a few years ago, right? I would say, we have a really cool thing at Oswego. I love our career services office. They're amazing. They're with you for life. You know, that's one thing you get when you go to a college. They'll help you, whatever. But one of the things that our career services does is a digital dirt squad where they dig through because where it really matters more prospective employers will look at your social media. So you don't want that picture you thought was so cool. There was a funny story. I was on a panel in Miller Place, and a student was emailing a college, right? Because he wanted to put that best foot forward and ask a question. But you know how Gmail puts the picture that you have? He was holding up 2 fingers, and they were the middle ones on both, and that was the picture. Not 2 thumbs up. No, it was another finger that wasn't as nice a gesture. You know, that's not the face. That was a middle finger on both hands. So, but a school could look. I mean, a holistic review. If you knew something, or you saw a post and it was really inappropriate, or someone had done something, we're allowed to use that. It's fair game, right? So, yeah, you want to be.
It just makes common sense not to put anything on social media that you wouldn't want to. Right,
you don't want
we don't really have the time to go and check everybody's social media, but you just never know.
Oh, the email addresses are funny too. So.
Yes.
Yeah, Kate's college email at gmail.com is a better one than some of the ones we see. Although I saw some really cute ones. I saw a Smiley Riley yesterday,
nice.
Which I thought was kind of cute.
I like that one.
Anything, as we can stick around for a minute, we have our cards. You have our emails here. We have some materials.
Thank you so very much. So again, we'll be here for a few minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to approach us. And thank you so much and have a great night.